What does success look like to you?
I would say it's a selfish pursuit of seeing how far I can go.
What would you say has been the biggest unlock that's sort of like taking you from a six-figure entrepreneur to a seven-figure entrepreneur?
Number one, sales. Number two, operations. Number three, leadership.
Leon Abu, the founder and CEO at Unfungible.
An agency that helps brands scale their presence and authority in the Web3 space.
When you're trying to learn different skills, what's the first step that you take?
Immerse yourself in as much knowledge and information as possible. Watch all the YouTube videos. And with time, you will start creating an encyclopedia of resources and things that you will need as an entrepreneur.
You preach a lot about the founder-led marketing. Do you think what you've done with Unfungible can be replicated today with another service-based business?
I think there's no other way to do it. I don't think that there is a way to build a service-based business without the founder funnel.
If you could change one thing in Web3 today, what would that one thing be?
I would completely eliminate the...
Leo, man, it's a pleasure having you on. I know we met probably about 3 years ago, and you've been able to just really take Unfungible from zero to where you guys are at now, man. I'd like to kick off the podcast by understanding a little more what your journey has been like, even just before Web3, and like scaling Unfungible from zero to, seven-figure plus over the last 3 years.
I appreciate this. Thanks for having me on, man. First of all, out of a lot of people you could have had on, choosing to have me. So I appreciate this.
Of course.
The journey, man, entrepreneurship has been a journey of trials and tribulations. I think anyone who's tried to do anything worthwhile knows that it is a journey filled with more unknown unknowns and more unknown variables than known ones. And a lot of the last 8 years, which is when I started being in the game of entrepreneurship, online money, was just trying to figure out what works for me, what works in the first place as a business, what are the areas where my zone of genius lies. And this path has led me to, over the last 3 years, being here in Web3, and frankly, no other place I'd rather be building right now.
Yeah, man. I think, at least for me, how it's been is like there's always learning experiences throughout the journey. And I think as long as you continue to build on top of those lessons, like at one point, the things will just become bigger. I want to dive into what the difference has been from starting in Web2, right? You said you started 8 years ago. What was that journey like, switching from the Web2 mindset to a Web3 mindset? And what business were you starting within the Web2, world?
Very, very interesting question. So Web2, my core focus was online marketing. So that was my main focus. And it's a big category. Under online marketing, you have people creating content, so making money through YouTube, affiliate marketing, e-commerce, and media buying, so aka like just running ads. For me, I was primarily in the game of e-commerce and the game of community building in Web2. Entering Web3, I believe one of the things I did right from the very beginning is I didn't try to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of people that come into Web3 and what they try to do is reinvent the wheel. Try to do something that was never done before. Try to do something because they believe that the industry is very different. What is different about Web3 is the culture, is the language we use, is the slogans, the rituals that we have within the industry, how we speak together. The language is different, but the fundamentals of business remain the same. A lot of people come to me and they're like, Leon, like, how did you build Unfungible to what it is today? And I answer, the blueprint is very simple and it's very boring. It's like, it is the blueprint in Web2, but for some reason it is very uncommon here in Web3, which is have a well-defined market segment that you're going after, reverse engineer your market positioning with content, and do this long enough until you become number one in that industry. And that was the path we've been following each other since the early days. I think first time we We met, you had, I think, 400 followers.
Oh yeah, it's a long time ago.
My YouTube channel, bro, was probably like 500 subscribers, something really small. And I would say from a fundamental business perspective, what changed? Not much. What has been a little bit trickier in Web3 is continuously adapting and taking risk in an industry that is very volatile. One of the challenges that I'm currently facing personally, full transparency, is resource allocation and risk allocation in an industry that fluctuates week by week. Man, like April, March was the second biggest month that the company has ever had. A month after April, like 50% volatility in the business. And as someone who has big goals, big aspirations, but that also as the CEO is fundamentally responsible for every decision that happens, including the good decisions, but also the bad decisions, which could end up affecting the cash flow, which ultimately could end up affecting people's livelihood within the company. Where my concern is how big of bets should I be making? Is now the good time to be potentially investing six figures in initiative that has a 40% success of succeeding, because that's nothing has a 100% success of succeeding, but could become a multi seven figure new business branch, while the impending doom of the bear market lies at our doorstep? How do you allocate resources? And frankly, this is something that I'm still learning. And now that I am operating at a different scale with more people, more cash flow, more employees. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think I've seen this as well, man. Like the market just completely shifts, and it's like I've had my best months, and then just absolutely like zero cash flow like come in the next month.
100%.
How do you manage to stay consistent, right? Because like when you think of business, I think what happens is a lot of people they have success, and then once it's like that success is gone, and they kind of get away from it, they tend to just fall back. How do you manage to stay consistent, like with hiring people, scaling? Just like how do you manage to stay motivated? Like that's a real question.
It's a great question. I was just at acquisition and they opened up the business workshop with a presentation. And it was about the difference between wartime CEOs and good time CEOs. And interesting enough, I was not expecting that to be in the agenda, but they started by presenting macro factors. So we had the head of portfolio. He was talking about how they're looking at the interest rates, the prospect of a recession happening in the next couple months or years. And they were saying, as business owners, the only thing we have control over is how we react to the variables we control. No one can change the market. You cannot change interest rates. But what you can control is how you show up as a CEO. And they told us that now is the time to go wartime CEO. A wartime CEO is someone that is smart with resource allocation, not splurging on fancy team events or fancy initiatives that don't have a direct return on investment. And thirdly, and most importantly, data-driven decision making. So to your question, how do you create consistency? It's by, number one, becoming good at tracking business data. And number two, it is giving time the time it needs to do its thing. To build enough statistical significance for your data, for your business, it'll take a couple months, sometimes quarters. But right now we are at a stage where we know that if the team does 100 sales calls and people are pitched, like 100 pitches, we should be getting 15 to 20 clients. Like that is our current numbers. And volatility changes depending on the month. But in statistics, there's this thing called regression to the mean. So over time, the mean will always be the same, which is why having statistical significance is important. So now you can start reverse engineering and deriving. If I project this month to have that the team is going to have 200 calls, for example, can my operations fulfill that amount of demand? If the answer is yes, then we can keep pushing on sales. If the answer is no, then this shows that my focus as a CEO should start allocating resources to overcoming the potential constraint, which might be operations. And that was one of the big takeaways that we got from acquisition. So we had a mentor analyze our business, and even more granular data tracking beyond just a sales metric is what the next step for us as a business should be.
How do you get like granular enough? Like what does that actually look like, right? I went to the workshop as well, and I think you went to the bigger workshop,
The
so
L2.
that's really good. Like what's the data look like? I think in Web3, what most founders lack is data tracking and metrics to make decisions. I think that causes a lot of projects to actually fail because they don't track revenue, they don't track profit.
Yeah.
They just like spend and spend and spend. Like what is it that you need to track as like let's say a Web3 brand? Like what do you think that might look like?
So I can only talk for agencies right now because that is where my expertise lies, and I can give my thoughts on just the broader. But if people do track, one of the things they only track typically is front-end marketing. So they track how many calls they've taken, how many were pitched, how many proposals were sent, the closes that they got. Maybe they track how many impressions they're getting, the new followers they're gaining. So they're tracking front-end marketing. And this we have. We're pretty diligent, pretty smart about these metrics. What we didn't have as granular was back-end data in terms of customer journey. So the guy that was supporting us, his name was Timothy. He was part of the portfolio team at acquisition, and he had exited 2 marketing agencies in the past. And he showed us his tracking dashboard that he had for his client. And bro, we're talking. Have you ever seen these Miro boards where it's like one
Oh
square
yeah.
leads into another square and then you can break it into? Bro, we're talking about like 250 data points. Where if this happens, this is how what should happen. Or if a client, for example, I'll give you a simple SOP that he recommended. He was like, if a client is in green zone, what happens from that point? Okay, ask for referral or ask for the testimonial. Who is in charge of this? X project manager. If client is in red zone, what are the actions that must be done? Let's say marketing campaigns of a client aren't performing as much as they should. Then we have senior project manager jumps in to audit. And then if that doesn't work and the audit isn't successful, we hand off the project to another project manager. And if that's not successful, how do we hand off the client completely? So how do you, so what are the SOPs? And for us internally, we have SOPs in place, but it's about really starting to become very granular and understanding what is the time from someone where they onboard to the time they get their first big win. We have an idea, a rough idea, but it has to be very specific.
Yeah. I agree. I think for me also it's been something that I'm always trying to work on. And I think a lot of people always go through this process, right? Like data tracking, it's very hard. Like when you look at data tracking, it becomes a lot deeper than close rate, how many calls did we take, all these
Yes,
things. And I think that was one of my takeaways, at least from the workshop as well, was like data will help you make decisions that like you could make like you couldn't make anywhere else.
100%. And the only thing I'll say for people, because I know not everyone that might be listening to this is an agency owner, but it's just if you are shooting in the dark, you're shooting at nothing. You're not gonna land on you're not gonna hit. So the moment you start creating clarity in your business is the moment you can start making data-informed decision and not gut-based informed decision. Because oftentimes gut feeling is emotional driven, but business is a very rational game. So that is what I will say on that point. Try to track what you can track without, of course, starting by to overwhelm yourself at first.
Yeah. I think people make that mistake as well. They overthink it and they're like, okay, I got to track everything. And there's a lot of things that are unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like you just don't need to track them. So I think it's like how I've done it is like I make a bullet point list of like what is it that we need to track, and then I like relook at that at like about a week later, and it's like, is this really interesting, or like
Yeah.
do we actually need to track this or not, and then just start building out those SOPs. I think going back to the workshop, right? So you just spent, I believe it was about 30,000 at the workshop.
30K.
You spent close to 6 figures in investing in yourself. What would you say has been the biggest unlock that's sort of like taking you from a 6 figure entrepreneur to a 7 figure entrepreneur?
It's interesting because it's one of these things where you can say that your favorite baseball player, for example, or favorite athlete, it takes one goal to become in the Hall of Legends, but that one shot was practiced a million times before that. So in entrepreneurship, it's very difficult to define what got to 7 figure in one single part. I would say it's a combination of a lot of things, but those could be broken down into three big ones. So three big categories. Number one, sales. Number two, operations. Number three, leadership. So sales, you need to know how to get the word out, get yourself known to your prospect, and close these prospects. As you said, I've invested close to 6 figures in myself and in the business and my team. Big chunk of that, it was in sales. So I would say 60% of that, 60-70% of that in sales. Operations includes customer success. So how do you improve the customer experience? How do you train the team to become good customer success managers? How do you deliver a no-brainer customer experience, pretty much? And then leadership. And that is one that has become more of a bigger priority recently with my team growing and me realizing that, oh, now I'm no longer working with things and automations and processes. I'm working with people. Completely different skill set, completely different way of moving and speaking. Leadership being the third one that I currently am, I would say, investing the most in. So these are the big three. And I'll give it back to you.
I'm curious, this is probably more of a personal question.
Yeah.
When you're trying to learn different skills, like what's the first step that you take? Like I know a lot of people will be like, "Oh, we'll go to YouTube, we'll watch it for free, I'll read a book, pay somebody to do it." Like what's your first step? Do you read a book on it? Do you go and find the professional and you're just ready to offer them whatever they're willing to take? Like how does that process of learning new skills works for you at this point?
Very interesting. So right now for me, the way it works is because when you spend time in the game, you start knowing who the players of the game are. So for example, only 2 months ago, we needed support on the operations side. So there were a couple questions we needed clarity on. So what I did instantly, I remembered my friend, a good friend of mine, had worked with a company 2 years ago on the operations side, and he had a very good experience. So I reached out to my friend. I was like, hey, do you have the contact info of these guys? He was like, absolutely. So that's when you're in the game, you start knowing the players. I know right now that if I am to need support with automating my sales processes, I know exactly someone that I've been watching on YouTube for years now. So you start knowing who the players are, which is why it's very important as an entrepreneur to immerse yourself in knowledge and immerse yourself in the university, which is entrepreneurship. There's a lot of resources out there on the internet, And the thing is, you are going to be exposed to information today that you might not necessarily need. These would be good to knows. But in 2 years' time, you're going to realize these were like must knowns. In 2021, I read a book on how to build and grow a sales team. Back then, I had no sales team. I had no sales team. I just read it because I was curious. And because I didn't have the necessity to implement, retention was probably lower. But I still knew I had that book there. 3 years later, I picked that book back up because that became the time where it went from a good to know to a must know. So the first step is immerse yourself in as much knowledge and information as possible. Watch all the YouTube videos you can get your hands on. And with time, you will start creating an encyclopedia of resources and things that you will need as an entrepreneur. That you can just go to the bookshelf when you need something specific and just take that book out.
Yeah. I like that process. That's how I've always worked as well. It's like how do I maximize the knowledge that I can get out of YouTube or the
Yeah.
free resources? And then after that's kind of like taken over, it's like how do I go to the next step?
100%. And can I say something on that?
Yeah.
It's a very similar process to learning languages. So in the last 2 years, I've learned two new languages, Spanish, Portuguese. And I remember while learning Spanish, the first one of these two, I met a polyglot, someone who speaks 7 languages, and he was still learning. He was learning Arabic at the time. I remember I sat down with him. I was like, "What is your process to learning so quickly?" He told me, "Leon, I have the same process that I use every time I want to learn a new language. The first 3 months of deciding I want to learn a new language, I will just consume that language. I will listen to music. I will listen to audiobooks. I would watch movies in that. I will look at books. I will do Duolingo. I will do everything. Just expose the brain dump information, pretty much. And then after that 3 month has elapsed, I will start the diligent studying process where I study the actual what are nouns, adjectives, conjugation, what makes a language, the boring stuff, pretty much. But the reason this works is by brain dumping information, all of a sudden the brain, there's a lot of things in your brain, and then all you need to do, the brain needs to do now is start organizing things in departments. It's like, oh, I've heard that word from that song. I remember. That's what it means actually, but it's in your brain somewhere. And same with entrepreneurship. There's more unknown unknowns that make up an important business. The very first step if someone is starting a business is like, what does the map look like? Where are the resources that I need? I might not be at the level that I need to go there, but at least I know there's that and there's a final boss there as well that might cause me trouble. So I need to be ready when I get there.
So just always being prepared.
100%.
Yeah, I like that. I think I just want to touch back on the success you've had so far. You don't seem like a very materialistic guy. Like, what does success look like to you? Right? Like, a lot of people would say family, a lot of people would maybe say cars. Like, for Leon, like, what does success look like in a lifestyle as well as business?
I would say it's a selfish pursuit of seeing how far I can go. You know, I think when people say legacy or say they want to be remembered, the reality of things is, I mean, it's you can barely remember president's name 1 generation ago of your country. So like, everyone's gonna be forgotten one day. The pursuit of how far can I really go, and I think this has been in me. I talk about this a lot, which is just discipline. The unstopping force of waking up every day and doing the thing no matter what. And a lot of how I've been moving in my life in the last 10 years especially has been just that. I go to the gym because fuck going to the gym to get a body. That's not the goal. It's to see how far you can go. There is no destination. If there was a destination for me going to the gym, it would have been hit a while ago. It's just a continuous process of seeing how far can this machine be pushed.
I like that. I think it's always the same with a lot of people. I see that that trait in a lot of people where it's like, how far can I get? Whether like honestly in everything, like not just entrepreneurship, but to just take that mindset and they take it everywhere. I think going back to sort of like the leadership side of things, because I think this ties back to it. How do you manage to keep people motivated within your team, right? Because I think that's a big problem that a lot of at least Web3 companies face. It's leadership when there's a lot of shiny object syndrome. I think there's just so many opportunities in Web3. How do you manage to keep your team sort of like sane and it just kind of in one spot and motivated?
It's a very important conversation. Very important conversation. There's a lot of things that make good leadership. It's not one silver bullet. However, I will share one of the important things that I recently learned. I remember when I mentioned we brought in an operations consultant. So 2 months ago, we brought in an operations consultant. And one of the things we thought we had very strong within the team is a sense of culture and a sense of vision. People were part of a team that they knew was building the future of Web3. Our slogan was a pioneering community building, because that's what myself and my business partner Kermit have been doing for the last 10 years, doing just that. And Web3 crypto NFT tokens are the best way to create that sense of belonging between project and community member. We thought it was well defined and everyone on the team understood it and resonated with it. We had these consultants come in, and the first thing they did is they sent a survey to all the team, anonymous, so we don't have access to the results, and they interviewed specific team members from specific departments. And then came the day of the audit presentation, so their findings. I sat down with Kermit over a 2.5 hour Zoom call with our consultant. And the way he broke down the business was it was like 12 action steps by different priority. The first one was written in red, critical bottleneck. Guess what was written?
Culture,
Vision.
vision.
I look at that, I'm like, what do you mean vision? Like, I thought that was like very well defined. Like, that was our
Bread and butter, right?
bread and butter. Vision. So he goes on to explain, and he mentioned that a lot of people on the team know that we're rowing somewhere, but they don't really know where we are rowing. And the reason this is impacting the business and it's costing money is because when people don't know where we are rowing towards, they start ultimately reverting back to becoming reactive in the business and solving for the day-to-day versus thinking proactively. How can I support this business? How can I come up with new ideas, new initiatives, new things, moonshot ideas that support the business? And without that, you're pretty much, people are stuck in the day-to-day doing what is on their to-do task. So I took that, and I remember it was like a full 1 day exercise for me. It was like priority number one, understand why the hell was that the case. So I sat down and I realized that what we had in place previously, so the pioneering community building, did not have enough stakes. Think of Elon Musk's company. Tesla, we're saving planet Earth. SpaceX, we're saving humanity. If SpaceX fails as the vision goes, humanity dies. The stakes are high. The need for victory is paramount. And people can band behind this vision. And what we had previously didn't have the stakes. So I sat down and I was like, what is something natural that we do within the company? And then I realized we had slogans that kept coming up, which is no one does it like Unfungible, the Unfungible standard. Then it's like all the reviews from the clients we would get, it was like the most common thing we would get from clients is, you guys are the most professional team I've ever worked with. You guys are creating a new standard for business partners we've worked with. Even team members, when they join the company, they're like, I've never been part of a company that is that structured. And I realized that the real impact that Unfungible has in Web3 is that in an industry with very low standards, we came in and we created the new Ritz-Carlton standard of Web3. And that is the impact that we should strive to have on the industry. Creating this new standard of excellence that will lift the industry up. Because without greater standards, the industry is doomed to fail. Because guess who thrives in chaos? The scammers, the rug pullers, all the people with bad intentions. These types of people thrive in chaos. And when I communicated that to the team, I remember I wrote a big paragraph for them. Yeah. And when I put it all together, things that inside jokes we had it internally, coupled with the client feedback, and I wrote it in one sentence, the Unfungible standard, all of a sudden things started to click. And internally within the team, people started to understand what is the bigger purpose that they're trying to do, and how can they start moving within their day-to-day to help the business achieve that, creating the new standard of Web3. So the first thing I would think about is, to lead people, you need a big enough vision that has high stakes. What does victory look like? Who is trying to prevent us from achieving victory? And what should we do to make victory the only option that exists?
I think this is something that not just in Web3, but a lot of people struggle with.
Yeah.
Is setting up processes, is setting up structure, is setting up a team that believes in their vision. I think you walked me a little bit through the process, but when I think about it, it's like when there's a lot of service providers,
Yeah.
how do you set yourself up as different? And I think this goes back to the leadership side of things, because it's like, how do we get, if you don't get the team to believe in the vision, how are you going to get clients to believe in the vision? What was that process like for you? Like, what was going through your mind when it was like, how do we separate ourselves from other agencies, right? Because there's a lot of service providers here.
There's a lot of service providers. It comes down to two things. You can either have a different way of solving someone's problem, or you could be better at marketing than anyone else. I'll give you a very basic example. One probably people don't think about. You can solve the same problem in different ways. How many agencies existed that helped people launch meme coins?
Oh, so many.
So many, a lot. Dev teams, go-to-market teams, they brought in teams, helped them launch meme coins. Then came Pump Fun. So now teams could start launching meme coins like that. Pump Fun is a service provider. When you think about it, it launches meme coins. It helps brands launch meme coins. Where the founders woke up one day of Pump Fun and they were like, our goal is to help founders launch meme coins because that's what we believe is the future of internet money. They could have started an agency. They could have started a school community with courses on how you can launch your meme coin, or they could have started a SaaS business. They ended up choosing a SaaS product, which set them apart from the competition. So you could be different with your service delivery, so how you deliver the service. Or number two, you can be different by just out marketing everyone in the industry. For us at Unfungible, we built a blue ocean for our core product, which is brand amplification through Twitter Spaces. And no one else, because we were first mover, and this product was built on top of years of brand credibility and network building, no one has the network that we do to deliver the same product. And the nice thing about the space program, why it worked, is the more we grew as a company, the more appealing the product became. Because all of a sudden our network of spaces grew. Our network of speakers in the network grew. We started having the ability to bring on big guests on our clients' spaces. We're able to match our clients with give them proximity to big people that they looked up to. So it's having a product and out marketing people just through the founder funnel, through just having a good content strategy.
I like that thought process. I never thought about it like that. I thought, Pump was just another product.
Oh, service delivery.
Yeah, I like that. They could have definitely started as an agency, but I think they chose the right path. I think for you, if you were to start from scratch, let's say in Web3 specifically, would you still go the service route, or would you build out a SaaS product?
If I were to start again with the same skill set and knowledge I had back then, I would definitely go service.
Why is that?
Because service is the easiest way to get in the game of business. Just like any game, you never want to exit the game. They say don't die. You never want to leave the game. You always want to be in the game. And I think service delivery is the best place to start that yields the greatest learning curve. That if failure were to be the option or were to eventually happen, because law of entropy, eventually everything dies, Coca-Cola will one day fail. The downfall will not be as big, and the learning where you can still bounce. And the nice thing about service providing is that it's oftentimes acts as a stepping stone for bigger thing. Iman Gadzi started as a service provider. Acquisition.com, service providers to gym owners. The pros for someone new learning business, in my opinion, outweigh the cons for services.
I think it's the best business to start when you're starting
I
from
would
zero.
agree.
I think at least a lot of people that I talk to, they like the thought process of coming into an agency because they build a network, they build the skill sets. There's zero overhead costs you start with. And I think it's just the best business model. I think for you, right? So obviously you mentioned that services are a great way as a stepping stone.
Yeah.
What's your bigger vision?
I love that. Great question. The ultimate goal is to be enterprise. So to have an ecosystem of products that will lift the standard of the industry.
Products being SaaS, services.
Still undefined. Most likely will be actual products that people use. That's the goal.
Gotcha. And I think I wanna figure out, right? If you weren't in Web3,
Yeah.
what would Leon be doing today if he wasn't building Unfungible?
2021 was a big transition year for me, I would say personally. I grew a lot. I learned a lot of things. And the man, which was Leon before 21 versus after 21, is a completely different human being. Back then, and it's the first time I shared this, by the way, and one of the things I had to work on a lot was how comfortable I was being around the different sex. I always grew up being incredibly shy, and like a lot of people, doubted myself, who I was, never was satisfied with who I was, which I think was a big driver for me to be where I am today. But in 21, 22, I started traveling in Latin America, and then I met this group of guys, and we started what they introduced me to was the world of dating. They introduced me to the world of game, and they introduced me to the world of taking control of your own romantic life. When I tell you, bro, that back then, when I would walk on the street and a beautiful woman would just walk by, I would feel a sense of, I would feel stress run through my body. It's a very weird feeling to say, but I generally had a reaction when there was a beautiful woman around me. And you know why that was. Jordan Peterson says that beauty is intimidating because it is a reflection of what you aren't. And back then I thought I wasn't the man that had access to that level of beauty. And me overcoming that fear, that anxiety, that insecurity was a big unlock for me personally, for my life. And to be completely frank with you, that was the transition point when I got into Web3. Were Web3 not to exist and NFTs never caught traction, I might have very well been, bro, helping other men.
Really?
I might have very well been, man, helping other men with their game, with their. It's a. What's most personal is most universal. There's a lot of men that struggle with this exact same problem, this exact same issue. It's more universal than you might think. And I know this plagues a lot of men, so I was super close, bro, because I was very passionate about this. I was very like in the game of that, of helping men overcome their deepest insecurities.
That's actually really interesting.
You were not expecting that.
I was expecting, I don't know, it's like something completely different.
No, bro.
That's
No.
interesting, man.
Yeah. I remember joining, bro, this like boot camp in Playa del Carmen in Mexico. And yeah, I became one of the members, like the supporting members. Like it's crazy days, bro.
Oh my God. That's amazing. I think you would have done amazing, Leon.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Ben, I wanna go to a little bit back into Web3 and kind of how you built what you built.
Yeah,
You preach a lot about the founder-led marketing.
yeah.
Do you think what you've done with Unfungible can be replicated today with another service-based business? Or do you think you've sort of like oversaturated that market?
I think there's no other way to do it. I don't think that there is a way to build a service-based business without the founder funnel. Like I cannot fathom having a brand account strategy for a B2B business. I
Doesn't
cannot
work.
see this happening. It's the only way for it to work. And I believe every single founder, whether B2B or B2C, should be investing in their founder funnel acquisition channel And I will say with B2B or with service-based businesses, which oftentimes are B2B, you are speaking to a much smaller target audience. Therefore, your marketing message is going to have to be much more specific, and you are going to be playing the game of quality, so smart followers, not followers. But 100%, I think it's the only way to do it.
Where would you say it would start now? Do you think, because you tapped into YouTube video content, like that was where you focused a lot.
Yeah.
Do you think that's the way to approach it now, or do you think it's mainly on X, Instagram, any other platform, or would you still, if you were starting today, would you still start the same way, basically?
For my specific market, yes, I would absolutely do that. Again, from zero. There's two businesses that you're building at the same time. There are two businesses that are being built right now at the same time for every entrepreneur. You're building the business of the present, but you're also building the business of the future. YouTube is very much a business of the future initiative. It's a machine that takes a lot of time. I'm talking a lot of time. I've been posting for 3 years and a half, bro. A video per week.
Oh, man.
And I've like, I don't know, 5K, 5.5K subscribers, man. And my videos still get a couple hundred views. But bro, trust me, when it's at 20K, 50K, 100K, and all of a sudden people are gonna look and gonna be like, this guy is like has dominated the Web3 marketing game. I'm investing in the business of tomorrow. So a lot of it is, where is your customer even? If your customer are not and will never be on YouTube, then there's no reason for that.
Yeah,
But yes, I would absolutely do it.
I love it.
100%.
I think it is the right way to do it. I mean, I fully agree with you. I don't think there's an approach that you could take without having founder-led marketing.
Yeah.
Whether that's for like, B2B or like, B2C. You just mentioned something that everybody's building two businesses at a
Yeah.
time. I think this kind of ties back into what I wanted to talk to you about as well. Was there's a study called the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Yes.
And I know Alex Hormozi talks about it a lot. I believe he might have touched upon it at the workshop at some point, which basically talks about the entrepreneurial cycle. Why do you think most people get stuck in the valley of despair? Basically meaning they have a shiny object syndrome. They don't understand, like how hard really is. Then they actually have an understanding of it. They just quit and then restart. I think that happens a lot in Web3. I've seen many people start 4, 5, 6 different businesses.
Yeah.
Especially with tokens.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Business is a game of just suffering for an insurmountable amount of time without a set date where all your hard work will come to realization. It's not a token unlock where you have like a 12-month vesting and then after that you start unlocking your tokens gradually. Sometimes entrepreneurship, for me, for example, it took me a good 3, even 4 years to start making any considerable money with entrepreneurship. It was a long process of getting product market fit. I know some friends that have had this success, that have made their first, let's call it 5-figure, in the first 6 months of them being in the business game. But the thing is, there's no way of knowing until you have made it. Last year, my brother was working at a very comfortable 9-to-5 job. He had studied industrial design and was working at a design company here in Dubai. At the same time, he was building his jump rope fitness business. He had a couple 100,000 followers on Instagram, and he was making about $2,000 to $3,000 selling his jump ropes. I look at him. One day I came to Dubai. I lived with him a couple months. And I saw him every day going to his 9-to-5. Every single day going to his 9-to-5. A 23-year-old guy. One day I sit him down and I'm like, bro, what's your long-term goal? He's like, I want to go all in on Timeless Jump, my company. I'm like, so, bro, there's one thing you need to do right now, and that you need to quit your job. You need to quit your job. And then I proceed to explain to him that it will take X amount of hours for you to get to the outcome that you want. No matter what. You can either do this by doing it at 20% the speed, by doing it while you are at your 9 to 5 job, or at 100% of the speed while being full-time this thing. The work will need to be done, the hours will need to be put. It took him a lot of time to quit his job. He eventually did. And 6 months after that, he had a couple months of like really slow business, like you barely pay his bills. I had to cover rent for him. Like that's what brothers do. Would do it all over again 100 times. A couple months after, he started making more money from his business than he was from working at a job. So that's what I say, because a lot of people in Web3 are young. They have nothing to lose. If you're in your 20s, you have no kids, no debt, you should 100% abso-freaking-lutely be betting on yourself. Go full time. Chew the glass. Be exposed to your biggest insecurities, because that's what business is. But go through the valley of despair, because everyone will need to travel through that forest, that dark forest. Everyone will need to travel through it. You might as well sprint through it than walk and take pauses and camp
Yeah.
in the valley of despair. Just go through it. And the final thing about people that are midway through the forest and then they decide to go all the way back to take another entrance, I would say sometimes people will need to go to do that a couple times for them to realize that there is no entrance to the force of despair, I'm going to call it. You just have to go through it. And I've personally, like, talking about personal experience, I've tried a couple of things, bro. I started in e-commerce and did online. I started doing fitness content. I started doing technology content. And I started selling merch. Then I went back into e-commerce. People will need to go through that a couple of times, and that's fine. But once you find something you're willing and able to do, sprint through that forest, man. Sprint through it.
I think we all go through it, man.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any way around it. I think for me personally, I've been, I guess you can call it, in the game for the last 6 years, 7 years, when I was in middle school.
Good for you, man.
And I've tried many, many things.
Good
man.
for you.
Instagram, sneakers, trading, the whole thing. And I think every time it was always a problem of starting again, never finishing through. And I think when I started in Web3, I was like, I want to go all in.
Yeah.
So I was like, I was maybe 16, 17. I was like, Mom, I'm not going to college. Immigrant family, you know how it is, Leon. She was like, no, you got to go to college. The whole family went. And I think it's leaving no plan B is the right way to approach it. And for me personally, 6 months after I moved to Spain with my girlfriend,
Yeah.
I had my first 6-figure or 5-figure month.
That's incredible, man.
And I think a lot of people have to go through that process to really understand what it takes to go through the other side.
One thing I will say, man, how old are you? 20, 21,
21, yeah.
21, man. You're definitely a lot more successful and making a lot more money than I was at 21. I'll say this, bro. So first of all, congrats.
Thank you, bro.
Congrats, man. Like, if you started the grind, you see, man, you started traveling through putting your hours in. It's jail time. You have to put your hours in to get freedom. You started doing that at 16. So good for you. I started at 20. So when I was 20, end of 19, 20, I started playing the game. So yeah, man, good for you, bro. Bright future.
Thank you, man. I mean, Leon, I know we have just a couple minutes before we wrap it up. I wanna ask you one last question. If you could change one thing in Web3 today, you had a magic wand, what would that one thing be?
I would completely eliminate the one-time big payout nature that this industry has. which will force businesses to think about recurring revenue and not one-time launches. The curse of the industry, which has been preventing a lot of businesses from finding product market fit, is that they raise a lot of money for an idea that doesn't exist oftentimes. NFT projects raise millions, token launches raise millions, founders make big bucks for ideas that don't exist yet. And in the quest to finding product market fit, which is sometimes a multi-year process, they end up burning through all the funds and unable to continue. We've seen that with a lot of NFT projects from 21 that made a lot of money, all of a sudden started to launch games. And I think this was ushered by Yuga Labs, which took the lead, and then everyone was like, oh, Yuga Labs is building games, so that is the right way of doing it. The problem, though, when you have a lot of money that you're working with, trying to find product market fit, you stop being smart with where to allocate your money, and you stop being resourceful. Most businesses, it doesn't take founder or VC raise money to find something that works that you can start selling. So I would absolutely remove that, because it will force founders and teams to stop thinking about how can I sell and make $1 million in 3-month marketing window. And instead, how can I build a business that generally makes recurring revenue, which oftentimes means how do I solve a problem that people will be willing to pay for. And when you have more founders putting their brains towards solving problems start getting solved in the industry, which means that the industry gets uplifted.
I think, yeah, I mean, I fully agree with you. I think it's been something that I've always thought about, and it's like, how could we change this? Because it kind of causes, people to sprint through that valley of despair, because now they have a ton of money.
Yeah.
They jump into that valley of despair and they're like, okay, I have this ton of money. Like, should I just start a new thing? And like, I made the money. I don't know. When you look at it in that sort of flywheel, it's a bit of a different process.
100%.
And I think it kind of messes with the entrepreneurial process overall, because everybody should go through that flywheel, going back to the valley of despair.
It's annoying, man, because every founder is trying to. There's hundreds of thousands of smart, well-intentioned founders that are generally trying to raise money. And a lot of them are trying to do that by marketing to people's greed, token launches, versus actually trying to solve problems in the industry. And I would say the reason why we still don't have mass adoption and the industry doesn't have, like, we should have products that are like crypto apps that don't look like crypto apps. We should have all these things. But I think the misaligned incentives. Founders are not incentivized to build these types of apps because there's more money to be made selling to the casino.
Yeah.
Becoming a supplier of the casino instead of a supplier to the free market. So that is, what I do hope changes.
I love that, Leon. Well, Leon, I know we're at the 1 hour mark. I appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you.
It's been an amazing talk. I love picking your brain, man. You're always one of those guys that's like, you always learn a lot from, man.
Thank you, Juan.
So
It was a
thank
pleasure,
you for
man.
coming on.
Great questions.
Thank you, man.